In this special edition of 7 News, the latest on this afternoon's horror fire conditions. Frightening scenes in Mallacoota as the sky turns dark for the second time in a week. We have reporters live across the Alpine and Gippsland regions for the very latest.
This is 7 News with Mike Amor.
Good afternoon. We have breaking news on Victoria's fire emergency as we go to air. The number of people unaccounted for stands at 21, with 2 confirmed deaths. And right now, Mallacoota is again under threat 4 days after thousands of people fled to the beach. Cassie Zervos is there. I think, Cassie, your backdrop speaks for itself. The sky has turned day to night again there.
That's right, Mike. It's just before 3:30 in the afternoon, but it looks more like midnight. It is incredibly eerie right now here in Mallacoota. In the last 20 minutes or so, the sky has just been blanketed with this red haze and thick black smoke. It's hard to see, it's hard to breathe, and there's dangerous embers falling from the sky. Now, this all comes after more than 4,000 people fled to the foreshore earlier in the week to escape the raging bushfire. Yesterday, the Navy evacuated about 1,000 people onto 2 ships so they could avoid all of this. Right now, we're not too sure what has brought this on. The wind has just picked up, as you can probably hear and see. We will have more updates once we find out more information. But at this stage, for anyone who is in doubt or who is concerned, the best advice is to head straight here to the water, which is where we will be.
Most importantly, you and everyone there, stay safe. Thank you. Let's stay in Gippsland now, and Paul Dowsley is in Nawanawa. Paul, has the fire threat increased there?
Just after lunch, an emergency warning was issued for the area around Nawanawa, which is about 25 minutes up the road from Lake's entrance inland. And like Cassie was saying, at Mallacoota, the sky here is also very foreboding. Town is essentially deserted. You've got the hotel over the road, nobody there. On this side of the road, you've got the local caravan park. Similarly, no one here. It had been until a few days ago filled with holiday makers. They have all left. The CFA, a group of about 6 trucks, left the local oval here maybe 15 minutes ago, heading out of town. But one of the residents who has chosen to stay, and there are some who are still here, is Dave, who actually lives here at the caravan park. Dave, you were telling me that on Monday it got pretty close to town, but you may well have dodged it a second time today, you think?
Yes, according to some locals I've been talking to, people who work in the forestry and deal with fires all the time, they seem to know what it's going to do within the parameters of uncertainty, which, fires produce. But no, we've been lucky.
Why have you chosen to stay, not leave?
Good question. The other night when it came through like a tornado, I was thinking, gee, was this really the wise choice? But no, it's a lovely town, and I did talk to local people and basically just made a choice, everything was going to be all right.
Well, let's hope that it is.
Yeah.
Mike, it's certainly here an eerie feeling, as it is right up the coast here. It's just deserted, so many deserted towns, and we're just hoping in the next couple of hours things will become clearer and that the towns like Nawanawa will remain safe.
Yeah, let's hope so. Paul Dowsley, thank you. Conditions have also deteriorated in the Gippsland town of Brutha, which is under threat this afternoon. Sunrise correspondent David Woywood is there. David, how's it looking there right now?
Well, Mike, things certainly haven't improved since we last spoke earlier this morning. Today's weather system has thrown absolutely everything at the people of Gippsland. We have had intense heat. We have had those incredibly wild and unpredictable winds. And now this, a looming dust storm and lightning storm up there on the ridge. And of course, the issue is if that lightning does land, it could potentially start another fire and another headache for the people here of Brutha. Now, the good news is we haven't seen any fires break out today. We've had that southwesterly wind blowing over that already burnt out fire ground across Sarsfield, which claimed dozens of homes earlier this week. But the good news is those CFA crews, they have just been monitoring the area, but this is still an incredibly anxious and nervous time ahead for this community, Mike.
I'm sure. Thank you, David. Let's go to Nick McCallum at the State Control Centre. Nick, we just saw the conditions in Gippsland. Where else have authorities are worried about right now?
Well, Mike, it's now a crucial time in the high country. We've just heard the towns of Ensay, Swifts Creek and Omeo are currently under Ember attack. There are reports at least 5 aircraft are in the skies water bombing around those towns to try to save them. Now, it comes at a particularly crucial time because the change is about to hit that area in the high country. Officials we've spoken to believe that change will flare up the flames and get them running again, and they need to be stomped on and stopped before they hit those tiny communities. Regarding the spectacular vision you've seen in Malakuta, according to the officials here, that means that the change has not hit that area as yet. When the area is hit by the winds, they're confident the skies will clear around Malakuta, and one of the good news out of that is they'll be able to get into RAAF choppers and go around isolated communities, around 16 of them around Malakuta, and try and get in and help to evacuate those people who have been stranded since the fires went through earlier this week. Another bit of good news out of Malakuta, earlier today, a vet from the zoo was flown into the town to look after struggling, injured and burnt wildlife. At this stage, Mike, there are around 10 emergency warnings throughout Victoria, and as I say, we're hitting a crucial time in the high country. Such a crucial time, in fact, the officials we were meant to speak to right now have been called into an emergency meeting.
Nick McCallum, thank you very much. Towns are coming under threat, as you just heard, in the Alpine region. Blake Johnson is just outside Bright. Blake, what's the latest there this afternoon?
Mike, we've driven about 7 kilometres west of Bright just to get a handle on where some of the fires are that are burning around the town. On the other side of that is Mount Buffalo. You can see the smoke. That's one of the fires that's burning just outside Bright. On this side of the hill, in the valley, is a farm run by Rob Muller. He's been here 20 years. He's a little concerned. So as a precautionary measure, he's put all his cattle into the pen here, and he's also been preparing his property. He's put all his hay bales into a shed, and he's watering down that shed in case the fire comes in.
I don't even want to think about it. It's just trying to keep the cattle alive and look after as much of the property as I can.
So it's just hit 43 degrees out here today. It's the peak temperature that the forecaster said it would reach. The concern out here is the wind. All day it's been blowing this way from the north, but in the last 20 minutes or so it's changed. It's coming from the southwest. That's been the major concern, or the major worry for people in Bright, because that fire on Mount Buffalo Ridge could come down that ridge and into the valley. There's some more fires a bit further south. So if those fires join together, you can imagine one enormous fire front, and Bright is over a couple of hills that way. There are some people who think Bright is at risk. Some locals say it won't be. That hasn't stopped 15,000 tourists in the town leaving on Thursday. So we're waiting to see what happens with this wind. At the moment, the change has come through. That's not the best news for this part of town, Mike.
OK, Blake Johnson, take it easy there. Thank you. While people in rural and remote areas encounter bushfire danger every summer, what's different about these fires is the risk posed to large towns like Lakes Entrance. That's where we find Tom Chadwick. And Tom, how are conditions where you are?
Well, Mike, there is a strange and unsettling feeling here at the moment in Lakes Entrance. This is usually a thriving tourist destination at the moment. It is eerie, it is desolate, it is smoky, and it is uncomfortably hot. Usually at this time of year there is about 5,000 people in the town. You'd be hard pressed to find 100 people. The nearest fire to Lakes Entrance is Nower. You heard from Paul Dowsley a short time ago. That is about 25 minutes to the right of me, and that is what has triggered this frightening late weather change. Unfortunately, there are a lot of farmers in between Nower and Lakes Entrance. We've spoken to them this morning. One woman in particular has canoes ready on her property to put into a dam if the firewall comes through. So we understand there is still that emergency warning in the Nower fire, which could be getting closer here to Lakes Entrance, but there is a genuine anxiety here at Lakes Entrance about what could be unfolding in the next 6 to 12 hours. Mike?
Absolutely. Tom Chadwick in Lakes Entrance. Thank you. Meteorologist Jane Bunn joins us now. Jane, what's the latest on those dangerous wind changes?
Well, Michael, we have dropped down to 20 degrees in Melbourne in gusty southerly winds, but extreme heat, as we saw, is still affecting parts of the state. Now, our current weather is controlled by a cold front and trough. The extreme heat is out ahead of those mid-40s right now in the northeast. and that's thanks to gusty northerly winds. But cooler air does follow the change. It is only 15 degrees in thick cloud in Portland, 19 in Geelong. Let's zoom into Gippsland now, and Orbost did go from 41 to just 21 degrees. The wind change is rounding the corner, as we saw at Malakuta and Merimbula, but it does take longer to go into those inland areas. Now, there is no reading from Malakuta as there is no power. The radar activity you can see in through here is not actually rain. It's smoke and ash from the fires that is mimicking rain on the output. And in the large fire zone, we now have a warning for thunderstorms in the yellow area, not producing that rain, but instead they do bring violent winds and lightning to start new fires. The northeast has a slower wind change. It is only crawling on through as the trough moves. Wodonga and Rutherglen have hit 46 degrees. The wind change is around Wangaratta now, but it is so slow that Wodonga has another 3 hours until it arrives, and then Corryong won't see that until much later tonight. Mike.
Thanks, Jane. Everyone watching the weather right now, thank you. 2 people have lost their lives in a catastrophic bushfire raging on Kangaroo Island off the South Australian coast. Nearly a third of the island's been scorched by 2 separate blazes which began last month. The Southern Ocean Lodge, considered one of Australia's top luxury accommodations, has been destroyed. Following accusations the federal government has been slow to act, the Prime Minister has announced a coordinated military response to the bushfire crisis. Army reservists and another Navy ship will be deployed, and new water bombers have been ordered. Here's some of what Scott Morrison had to say.
We must move forward first as a Commonwealth, particularly with the work of our Defence Forces, and then integrate with the local operations that are in place in those local communities. The ADF surge includes the deployment of up to 3,000 designated ADF reserve forces to assist ensuring the safety of life, to support the evacuation of affected people, particularly in isolated communities, and provide assistance to isolated communities and support state-managed evacuation centres. The HMS Adelaide, the Navy's largest amphibious ship, has been readied to join the HMS Churls and the MV Sycamore in supporting evacuation of citizens from fire-affected areas along our coastline. Following a request for 1 additional water-bombing aircraft, today we have committed up to $20 million to lease 4 extra planes to fulfil that request and to meet any anticipated future requests.
Now, for a final overview of the fire crisis as it stands, a wind change has whipped up flames in East Gippsland and the smoke at Malakuta has turned the sky black. There are ominous conditions in towns throughout the region with dozens of emergency warnings in place. Fire is also taking hold in the Alpine region and the northeast. Residents are nervously awaiting the arrival of the wind change there. And 1 boatload of Malakuta evacuees has arrived in Melbourne, with another due shortly. And that's the latest on Victoria's fire emergency. Clearly, it's a developing situation. I'll be back in 7 News at 6 with full coverage and live reports from our reporters across the state. Enjoy the rest of the cricket.